Okay, and it's 6 o'clock. Holly, if you want to start the recording.
I just did.
Thank you. It's 6 o'clock, June 25th, 2026. And this is the Town of Windsor, Vermont Planning Commission 2026 Bylaw Amendments Public Hearing Review. I'm gonna turn the meeting over to the Vice Chair of the Planning Commission to run the public hearing portion of tonight's agendas. Harry?
Okay, are we doing it? All right. Thank you, Cliff. I'm Harry Falconer. I'm the Vice Chair of the Commission. I am been tapped to be kind of the MC for tonight. We're going to officially open the hearing. This hearing is specifically on a proposed amendment to the Windsor zoning bylaw. It is not a hearing on the town plan, the regional plan, Act 181, or any other, ordinance, law, or otherwise. So please limit your comments to the document that we're here to review. There are a handful of hard copies that I see you guys have taken from the front. We also have the bylaw report, which kind of summarizes the proposed changes, several copies up there. So please feel free to reference those. We're also going to, I hope, follow along on the TV. When people raise comments, we'll go to that section that they're talking about. To give a kind of brief summary on the changes, which you can also read in further detail in the report. The main impetus for these changes was to bring the bylaw into compliance with the Vermont Home Act of 2023. So that's the law of the land already. State law supersedes local law in really all cases, but we wanted to actually bring the bylaw into alignment to reflect all of the changes that came with the Home Act, which upzoned and preempted local zoning in a number of ways. The most significant change is that dwellings up to 4 units are now allowed as of right in all districts with public water and sewer access, which largely coincides with the center of town and the core zoning districts. If you want to see the maps of where public water and sewer are available, they are in the town plan. We also reviewed the dimensional standards in each district. So we paid particular attention to minimum lot size, setbacks, and structure coverage. Our town planning director, Hallie, conducted a spatial analysis to quantify the number of lots that are non-conforming in each district. And the analysis showed that in some districts, upwards of 90% of existing lots are non-conforming. So all of those lots were kind of predated the introduction of zoning in Windsor, and since then, the zoning bylaws that have been adopted have created stricter and stricter dimensional standards to the point where it's no longer illegal to build the kind of built environment that we see in Windsor today, which really predated zoning. So to address this problem, we've lowered the dimensional requirements in multiple districts, mostly in the core area of town, to better reflect Windsor's historic development pattern of compact settlement, and reduce the degree of nonconformity, which is also an administrative burden, because if you have a nonconforming lot, that means you have to pull permits for doing a lot of different types of things that are often very minor. So we're reducing the administrative burden with that change. And the last kind of significant change that we've done is increase the required elevation for development in the flood overlay district from 1 foot to 2 feet above base flood elevation. And that's to better align our bylaw with the current best practices in flood planning and the National Flood Insurance Program. So that is really just changing the digit in a few places in that section, but it is a significant change. And now for just kind of the rules of the hearing, we're going to invite you all up to comment article by article. So that's a way I find to keep it structured, but not to be super duper granular where we go through every single sentence and every single section. So we're going to go Article 1, authority and purpose, and then Article 2, establishment of zoning districts and district standards, and so on and so forth. And I guess I'll just say right up front that the vast majority of our proposed changes are in Article 2. So that's going to be probably the biggest focus area. Please no ad hominem attacks. You will be asked to leave, or we will recess the hearing or postpone the hearing if necessary. If you please direct all your comments to the Planning Commission as a whole and not to individual members, and personal attacks will not be tolerated. Be as specific as possible. If you can give a page number, a section number, and if you can tell us exactly what you don't like, and if you can give us a potential corrective measure or solution that you feel would correct the problem that you have with that section, even better. Although we can't, necessarily ask that of everyone. Generally, we would like to avoid comments on formatting, numbering, pagination, typesetting, punctuation, grammar, all of that stuff. Those are considered technical corrections, and those can be made at any time. We're really looking for comments on the substance of the bylaw. So if you notice a semicolon out of place or some weird formatting or something like that, we can always make those technical corrections later, and there will be a round of copy editing before this goes to the select board. The select board also has to have a hearing of their own, and before this is finally adopted, we can always do more copy editing and technical corrections. So don't fret the small stuff, please. If you can focus your comments on the substance of the bylaw, we would appreciate it. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Once your 3 minutes are up, you'll be asked to please yield the floor. If you have another comment on the same article, you can comment again, but please only after any other commenters have finished. And let's see. Oh yeah, lastly, this is a public hearing. We're mainly here to hear from the public. We're gonna keep our conversation and commentary and responses really to a minimum. We'll mostly just listen to your comments, note it down, and the discussion will be held at the regular planning commission meeting that's immediately to follow this. And if we don't come to any conclusions on advancing the draft or not to the select board later tonight, we'll continue discussing at the next meeting. But for the hearing itself, we're mostly just going to say thank you. We appreciate your comment, and we'll move on and try not to get in too much back and forth. Generally, we will also not be answering questions about why we made a given change. That's really just for the sake of time, because we could do that all night. Yeah, that's about it. So with that in mind, I guess we'll start with Article 1, Authority and Purpose. If anyone has any comments on that, please come up and state your name, and you have three minutes. Yeah. Mike,
my comments are about your introductory comments. Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Could everyone please state the name, even though we know them, for
Okay.
the meeting record?
He did. He just might be a little far from a microphone.
But let me say it again.
Yeah.
Michael Quinn.
Yeah.
From Windsor. Two things that you said. One, you said that state laws supersede local laws.
Yep.
What about if the town has a charter?
We're Dillon's Rule state, so the state, we only have the powers that the state grants us, and state law is in effect.
What's the purpose of the Windsor Charter? I thought that all the work to make a charter was so that the town could have more control over its happenings and not just be subject to state statute. But I could be wrong, but I thought that was.
I'm not enough of a wonk to answer
Okay.
that, but it may give the town some limited additional powers, but they're granted by the state. And if the state makes a change about municipal zoning, it's the law of the land, no matter what our current out-of-date bylaw.
I wanted to share what I thought was the way it worked with you, in case it mattered for your accuracy. And two, I really appreciated your comments about not permitting ad hominem attacks, because that's sure what it felt like was happening towards me in one of those earlier meetings. So I'm glad that won't happen anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on Article 1? Article 1 is mostly organizational, and I don't think we made many changes. Okay. Going once, going twice. And then we'll move on to Article 2. As I said, this is where most of the changes, proposed changes are. Hope everyone's had time to digest. If it's helpful, we can maybe go district by district with this section. There's quite a lot.
Sure. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Just follow the way this works.
Sure. All right, so let's go to table 2.1, the resource districts. And if I refer to page numbers, I'm gonna refer to the red line version, not the clean version, because that's what we've provided in person tonight. Any comments on the resource district? I'll ask again for more comments at the end of Article 2, since there's a lot here. But I'll keep going for now. Table 2.2, the rural district. Okay. Table 2.3, the low density residential district. Two four, the medium density residential district. Ellie, would it be possible to get the PDF on screen to follow along, just in case there's something we want everyone to look at?
Of course, yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Might be a silly question, but are you following this? Is this where you're going?
Yes, we're following the red line version. So yes, we're following the actual bylaw, the big one. So table 2.2.4 is on page 10 of that. That's where I'm at right now.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'll keep going, and then we can just have it open to the whole article at the end. High density residential district. Okay. Central business district on page 12. Village mixed use district, table 2.7. Table 2.8, the roadside business district.
Pages are on there.
Sure. That's on page 15, the roadside business district. Industrial district, page 16. And the flood hazard overlay district, that's a long one. It starts on page 17. Or no, I'm sorry. It's not actually that long. Downtown design review overlay. There are no changes to that, but if anyone has any comments on that. Oh, there was actually a small change there. Okay, well, that's the last of Article 2. I guess we can just open it up to the whole article, and if anyone has something to say, yeah. Come on up.
Dan Jones. I live in Windsor. There are several districts that include a garden center. I think it's the rural district, the resource district, and low density residential. That seems completely out of place, sticking out like that. Why would you include a garden center and not any other retail outlet of similar impact on the surroundings? So I think it should be modified very simply, just say garden center and other small, low impact enterprises or something to that effect.
Okay, thank you.
Where's that? Is that in the book?
Garden centers, conditional use I'm seeing, and
Oh, on the
a
conditional
couple
uses.
of
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
Conditional uses are not limited to just what's on the conditional uses, right?
Depends on how our bylaw handles it. Certain bylaws handle conditional uses differently. So sometimes if it's not listed as a conditional use, it's prohibited. Sometimes they do what's called a similar use determination. So the zoning administrator will say, I don't know, maybe it's a bad example, but a tree farm is not listed on here, but Kelly could go through that process and determine that it's similar enough to a garden center that they follow the process for a garden center. Sometimes if it's not listed, anything that's not listed is just treated as conditional. I don't actually know the answer to that. I don't know if Hallie has the answer to that off the top of her head.
So normally, we take the nearest use. So if it functions in the same way, so we use what we have in our list. If we don't have that use in our list, we don't permit that for that district. And
Okay.
if it's not close enough to any of the uses that we have, we do not permit that.
Okay, so yeah, it's a similar use determination would be yeah. Okay, thank you for that comment. And yeah. If no one else has anything, come right
Oh,
up.
yes, I have to wait till.
That's all right, but it doesn't seem like there are any,
Well, the way you discussed the garden center, you said, well, maybe a tree farm. We have completely different ideas of what a garden center is. I thought a garden center was a retail outlet that sold garden supplies, which would make it different from the agricultural operation of a tree farm, which is similar to, I don't know what it's similar to. But
sure. Mhm.
So right now, it's not even clear what is meant by garden center. Is it a garden and agricultural operation, or is it a retail outlet that sells shovels and packets of seeds and the like? I was thinking the latter, which would justify including other small retail outlets of similar impact. But if you just look at the similar use standards that Holly was talking about, then you wouldn't need to modify it. Just anything that's similar to a small retail outlet would work. But it should be clear what's meant. Is the garden center the agricultural operation or the retail store?
It is actually defined in the definition section. I did give a bad example with the tree farm. That would not be considered similar. So
Okay.
it is
Read retail is, yeah, the way you were thinking.
yes.
So
It's on page 95. Use of land, buildings, or structures for the purpose of selling materials, equipment, and supplies for use in gardening, landscaping, and/or farming, but it specifically excludes nurseries and greenhouses that are defined as agriculture. So my example was like the exact opposite of what I should have said. But yeah, so there is a definition for that, and I guess a small outdoor-oriented retail shop would probably be similar.
So when this is interpreted, it'll have to be small outdoor and retail. Outdoor oriented, if it were indoor oriented, then as written, it would not apply because that's not sufficiently similar. Is that the way it would be interpreted?
I can't speak to how it would be interpreted, but I mean, it's still a conditional use, so it would have to go through the development review board regardless.
Okay, so if someone came in with proposing a hardware store,
I would say a hardware store is very distinct from a garden center, but
so the intent is to exclude a hardware store, but to allow a garden store.
I mean, yes, I mean, this predates us. This is in the existing bylaw, but I suppose.
I heard that there was just someone who was thinking of doing a garden center there. And so this got slipped in when they were doing the last or previous round of bylaw amendments. And seems to me if you can have a garden center, you should be able to have other types of retail outlets that are not specifically related to outdoor activities.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. You want to come up, Mike?
Michael Quinn, Windsor. Something's piqued my detail thing. And I apologize if I may be delivering just a distinction without a difference, but I think of something like Northern Nurseries. I tried to buy some shrubs there recently and I couldn't because they don't sell retail. They're only wholesale. So I don't know how significant that word is in your documents, but I know retail we think of as you can go there and buy it, but at Northern Nurseries it's wholesale.
Thank you. Any other comments on Article 2? Well, since there's such little discussion, I guess I'll just add to that agriculture is exempted from local zoning under state law. So I think that's why the definition for garden center specifically excludes nurseries and greenhouses that are defined as agriculture under state statute. So it's kind of a carve out to say, okay, you're not big enough or whatever to be considered an agricultural operation, but we still want to regulate it under the bylaw. But yeah, I think that maybe is related to what you're discussing, Mike. If they had a retail operation, they would probably have to be permitted under the local bylaw. But if they're just wholesaling, then they're considered agriculture.
I'm just trying to change the cracks in the discussion so that you don't get attacked or something by, oh, what you said this, and then really, that's all.
Yeah, no, thank you. I understand. If there's no further discussion on Article 2, we'll have a general call for more comment at the end, just since there's been such little discussion. You can bring up anything you want from anywhere in the bylaw if something occurs to you. But for now, I guess we'll move on to Article 3. Specific use standards.
It's page 20.
Starting on page, 19, 20? 19.
Well,
19.
Oh yeah, it's page 20 of the PDF, but it's labeled as page 19 because of the
Right.
cover page. Yep.
I think you're right.
Any comments on Article 3? If nothing jumps to mind to anyone, we can also just zoom through and call out the areas where changes have been proposed.
I
And then-
want to note that
Except
section
for-
312, that this verbiage is
That's
directly
actually
from
that's the only change in this article.
it's the only change and it's directly from the state law.
Yep.
I think it's important everybody understands that 3.1 number 2, that language is directly from the state law. So it's nothing we wrote, but it's required that we put it in.
And the, yes, the 900 square feet, whichever is greater or 30% that's state statute. So we are required to put that in. And the second sentence we added is just to clarify that you are still entitled to build an ADU if you have a non-conforming lot. So if your house is on one of those lots I mentioned at the top of the hearing, that is smaller than what is now required for minimum lot size because your house predates zoning, you are still entitled to have an ADU as long as it complies with the setbacks and the other dimensional standards and has a water permit. Okay. But if there's any comments, and you're by all means, comments are not limited just to changes that we've proposed. I mean, if you have any other comments about things that were already in the bylaw, we're of course open to hearing that as well. So while we're here. Okay.
Actually, no, 4.2.
It's like comprehensive, so we can. No.
Oh, because that was the law, accessory dwelling.
Right.
I take it out.
Okay, we'll move on to Article 4 in that case, which should be general standards. Yep, general regulations starting on page 31. Yep, come on up.
Good evening, David Moore from Windsor. We had some discussion, looking in here for anything about the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. We did not see anything. And so we thought the appropriate place to put a reference to that would be section 4.0. So it would say the following general standards, including provisions required under the Act and under the provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which is cited as 42 USC subsections 12101 and sec, and then continue to all uses and structures.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
And specific wording if you want to for the ADA.
Yeah, if you have that written down,
Yeah, I wrote it.
we're happy to take the
You
language.
wrote it. If you want to just bring that up, that'd be great.
Thank you.
I think that stated it pretty well.
Yeah. Any further comments on Article 4? I think section 4.2 on page 32 is the most significant change. Striking through one of the sections there. Just make sure there are no other. The parking section, off-street parking and loading requirements, section 4.9 on page 37 has also been changed. It is now state law that you can't require more than one parking space per unit in areas with sewer and water. So that has been lowered. Scanning for any other changes. Very long section. Okay. Article 5, development review. So this is procedures for development review and conditional approvals. And okay. Any comments on the article as a whole? And there's a few things I'll call out specifically. Section 50A.
Starts on page 52.
Okay.
Actually, technically 51.
Yes, state law now prohibits site plan review for single and two family dwellings and of 3 to 4 unit dwellings where municipal sewer and water is accessible. So that has looks like we already have that in there actually, but that is a required language now. Any additional comments on this article? This includes Article 5 includes the flood hazard area regulation, so I'll call those out too.
63 and of the PDF. I think it's just the elevation, so it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the increases.
Yes, okay, so I started to see the red ones. Section 5.6, which starts way back on page 67. As we get into the standards down, starting on page 71, you can see we've updated it to be 2 feet above base flood elevation. And that's a small but significant change, as I said at the beginning. So yeah, new development would have to, the habitable areas would have to be at least 2 feet above base flood elevation in the flood overlay district. Any further comments on Article 5? Okay. Article 6, starting on page 77, administration and enforcement. Any comments on this section? Didn't change much here. Okay.
That was just done. That was the formatting. This was the one that I called out with the introductory, the boxes were covering the text in the document. That was the major issues that we had in that. So there wasn't really any changes. It was a formatting issue.
Oh, with
that-
the inset.
that insert boxes were actually covering part of the actual text, whether printed or read. So you, like the
Right.
first sentences of stuff were cut off,
And that has been.
and that has been fixed. I was just saying that needs to be fixed because we need to read everything. That
Excellent.
was a me thing.
Yep. Okay, no further comments on Article 6. We'll move on to Article 7, which is definitions. We made a few tweaks in this section. Really semantics. We changed the term planned residential development to planned unit development, which is the more orthodox term these days. We talked a lot about the definition of coverage. Made some minor changes there, reduced a little redundancy, and we also added language clarifying that if a term is not defined here, or if it conflicts with a state definition, we always go with the state definition. Any comments on definitions? Okay, hearing none. Might as well ask for comments on the appendix. We did not look at that at all in this round of revisions or talk about it, but if this has been if this section has been a thorn in your side at some point, please tell us now. And we'll consider changes. Okay, and then I suppose I'll mention that Appendix B is the zoning maps. We did not propose any changes to the maps for this revision. But if you have any comments on the maps, boundaries, districts, feel free to give those as well.
That will be sensitive to town plan discussion, actually.
Yes, we will.
But we are not doing any revisions to the town map at this stage.
We will discuss the future land use map and the town plan pretty extensively when we work on the town plan in the near future. That's not the same as the zoning map, but it does enable the zoning map. Okay, well, I guess I'll just open it up to the whole bylaw then, if anything caught your eye, or you've remembered something that you'd like to discuss anywhere in the draft. Yeah, come on up.
Okay, Dan Jones, at the risk of being trivial, on page 88, section 7B7, there's at the end, we should discuss this by law. I think that was intended as a comment, not as part of the text. And I would disagree with the comment. I think shall is a better word to express mandatoriness than will.
We just repeated.
That definitely should not be in the bylaw.
Okay. Page 88, go down to section capital B, 7. We just read it. The word shall is mandatory. The word may is permissive, period. We should discuss this as it's open to interpretation. Will is a better word. I think
That's a good catch. Thank you.
shall and may are the appropriate words.
Shall, not may.
Well,
Shall.
shall and may as they're used here is correct.
Yes, we should definitely strike that second sentence there. Let's see.
Definitions. Yeah. Oh, that can talk to.
7B. Yeah, thank you for that. Any other comments from anywhere in the bylaw? Okay. Surprisingly little, but thank you all for your comments, and I suppose we can adjourn the hearing at this point.
Well, do you want to go through these findings, conformance? All right. here? Does that matter?
We don't have to read the report.
Okay, that's just.
Yep. Just goes to DHCD.
Sure.
All right. So that concludes the hearing, and now hand it back to Cliff for our regular meeting. Thank you all for participating.
Okay, so I'm going to call to order the regular planning commission meeting for June 25th, 2026 at 6:40 p.m. And at this point, I'd be looking for public comments. And we'll have some more at the end, but we've had quite a few. But if anybody'd like to speak about anything at this point relative to anything on tonight's agenda, that'd be great. Hearing none, then does anyone have any changes to the agenda?
Did you have something?
Yeah, I did have one thing that I want to do, and we're going to do it under other business, and that I want to have a discussion about our next meeting on July 9th. Jason had asked me to bring up a couple of things as far as from the getting us started with the planning process of the town plan, because that meeting would be organizational for the town plan side. So we can talk about that when we get down to other business, but it's just more of passing on some information from Jason.
Okay.
So let's take a look at the June 11th prior meeting minutes. And if anybody has any changes or modifications to them, or if someone would like to make a motion to approve them.
Well, I wasn't here for this meeting, but I did read the minutes, and I motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Motion approved. Next, let's see, we did that. So let's discuss what we learned in tonight's hearing. And we found some very good comments that came in. And I think we should kind of step through them. I think the first one was wrote is the change that she suggested. Do you have the exact paragraph where that goes in? That was section 5.
No, that was the very first section of Article 4.
Article 4,
Yep.
right. I didn't note that. Let's go to there and talk about that briefly. And if we'd like to add this to the document.
I mean, I'm all for adding it. ADA is the law of the land, obviously, but it doesn't hurt to restate it. I don't know, having not thought about this before, I'm not sure where the right section for that would be. Does anybody have any thoughts if there's maybe a better place to put that?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's an interesting topic to bring up. The thing is it, we don't want to do something that would also trigger a complete new hearing. But I think as a supplement that we could add to it, we could. I mean, I'm not opposed to the verbiage and placing it where she suggested. How does everybody else feel about that?
Could you read it again?
It's a citation of the ADA statute.
I repeat it.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great, because you
have it
gave
written
me the
out, yeah.
abbreviation here, and I just, look, is it, you expressed it eloquently, but it's not written that way here.
So it's here, so you have under the act and under the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which is cited as 42 so on.
Okay, so that's on document page number 31 at the top, section 4.0 applicability. And it would then read the following standards, including provisions under the Act of 4406 and 4409.
Under,
and under. My pen, Harry stole it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I took my notes. You can have it back. You're a lefty, huh?
I am.
Wow.
I'm in my right mind. And under Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA statute 42 USC 12101
et sec.
et sec. And then continue to apply to all uses, structures as specified within the town of Windsor is the thought, right?
So I will say, I don't think that's the right place, but what I'm realizing now, and I'm sad to say I had not checked our bylaw for this or really thought about this before. We do not have a waiver provision for disability access, which is a thing that many bylaws have.
I think we do. I think we do.
Did we?
Yeah.
I control F for it and I didn't find it on a quick search, but do you know what section it is?
No, just let me look. But I think, for example, accessibility ramps are exempt. Any accessibility needs are exempt from a zoning permit. So it's allowed in all districts. I know we have it in the bylaw. We can look into that.
Oh, I see.
And if it's, let's say that if it's not included, we will look where to include it exactly in the section where it belongs.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. It's interesting that it's done under exceptions rather than a waiver clause. Me. Because if you do a waiver clause, then there would be a paper trail, but if it's an exemption, it just doesn't get permitted.
Yeah.
And that is a weird.
Allowed, it does not need a permit.
Right. So this is for those following along, Article 6, Section 6.0, page 77. B6, uncovered entry stairs and handicap ramps for access to the first floor above grade, which do not extend into or obstruct public rights of way, are exempt from permitting. But a waiver clause, which is how other bylaws sometimes handle this, is it says any modifications that are needed for disability access will receive a waiver from zoning permit, even if they extend into setbacks or create nonconformities or things like that. So if you have to put a ramp on the side of your house or the front of your house, and it has to go there, it can't go somewhere else, and it encroaches on the setback, it is waived from permitting. So exempting it altogether, putting that in this section is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like it would be lip service to put a mention of the ADA in Article 4, but if we actually were to add maybe a waivers provision for handicap access, that would be something meaningful that would actually achieve that. But
I think you're limiting what disabilities might need. If you're just talking about this type of access, there are other needs under the Disabilities Act.
sure.
I'm not quite following. That would be affecting the footprint of a property,
I
or
suppose like an elevator shaft or lift. I mean, lots of different things.
like a stair lift type of thing.
All sorts of modifications, yeah.
I don't know that we really control a lot of interior things that way, though.
Interior things?
Yeah,
Well, if they have to add to the footprint, yeah.
right. If it's adding to the footprint, but I'm not sure. Is that what you meant, adding to the footprint? Are you talking about like somebody wants one of the chair lifts that you have in your house and put on your stairs? I mean, I'm trying to picture what kind of things could come up.
I am not familiar with the details of the act. I'm just saying, as Harry said, it's a federal statute.
Right.
You have to comply with it anyway, and why not?
Sure. I like I said before, I don't think it hurts to call it out specifically.
I think too, we were thinking that it would help the design review board remember that they have to consider that.
Sure.
In general, if we have any application that is not include that we cannot find any section in our bylaws, we refer to the statutes.
Okay. You guys have any thoughts over there? It's so quiet over there.
I don't have any problem including it in Article 4. It's already mentioned in the parking, or it's referenced in the parking section under 4 of the act itself. So, I mean, the assumption is obviously everything would you'd be following it.
Right. I guess the other thing is that the zoning and zoning permits exist totally separately from building permits. And the ADA largely interacts with building code and building permits, except for situations where it changes the footprint and might encroach on the dimensional standard. So I think that's why a lot of towns have this waiver language that says, you know, if you're extending the footprint of the building for the purposes of access for disabilities, then it is exempt from zoning. But the zoning bylaw has nothing to do with building code. So I think that's why it specifically talks about that usually. But like I said, I'm fine mentioning it.
So where are we with this? Do you think if we do, as Rhoda suggested, put it on section 1.4, the opening of 1.4, do you feel that kind of covers us for now until we get into the detailed reviews later? I don't know if this is either, I'm not sure that this is part of the town plan process either, but whether we go through the accessibility and things like that in there, I mean, we know in planning, we have to, like sidewalks and entryways and much of those things. The other thing that's a disability issue is stair heights are a big deal for a lot of people, because been familiar with that. But those are all the things that are in the federal guidelines. They exist there. I don't know that we need to add them to our document if they already exist there. And if we reference them, that should be appropriate enough. But again, I think that's more of a new building kind of thing than it's modification of an existing building, because you'd probably, I mean, it depends on what you're going to put on the outside of the building. That's really what we're looking at. Is it encroaching on anything that has to do with the available area that you can build on?
Well, by just referencing it and not needing to restate the entire statute, of course, by just referencing it, that covers anything you need to do to the structure.
Right. So by adding that to that sentence you suggested to number 4, that should, for now, I mean, again, we're going to be back here and we're going to be back in a lot more detail later, focusing on those kind of things as opposed to just conforming to the state. So, and there's nothing to say that a statement could be made in the town plan having to do with disabilities. Nothing at all. It's perfectly fine to add something like that. And that's the time to do it. And that would direct zoning to then conform back to the town plan. So, question is do we want to make that change now for this next 6 to 8 months time frame, or do we address it then? I mean, a thing like this isn't going to stop us from passing it. We can pass it as amended. So if we wanted to do that to advance it.
No, yeah, I mean, just to be clear with everyone, we're free to still advance the draft tonight if Cliff calls a vote, and we can make, we can move to advance it with certain changes. So we can incorporate any or all of these and say we're going to advance the draft with these changes, make the changes, and then transmit it to the select board.
Right, because there will be another.
It doesn't hold up the process at all. We can definitely incorporate that. Just to be clear.
Right.
Would it be worth checking Rhoda's suggested sentence with Jason or
We have Ellie.
state?
So, but we don't. We could do that, but that would stop it from advancing.
Okay.
But we're going to advance it to the select board, which they're going to review it. They may want some things to change. And at that point in time, they're going to have a hearing. And these things can be discussed there, in which case they can make some changes at that point in time, and it may require sending it back to us and start the process from step one and going back to it again. Which means, I don't know if we're gonna have a town plan in time. But that's the main thing I'm concerned about right now is I think that's such a small change that we can do that and amend it and move it forward. It's sort of like we did with the definitions, saying, hey, we may have all of these wrong. So we're going to refer to the state's definition in the case. Anything we said here, we got wrong. That's basically what we did. And I think her statement is saying the same thing. Everything that's in here is pursuant to making sure it conforms with ADA.
Yeah, I mean, can we just correct me if I'm wrong, but this change is something that's implied to just being more explicit if we put it right? I mean, it's not changing, or am I wrong in saying that?
Well, so for everyone's edification, there are multiple junctures that we can make substantive changes to the draft before it's adopted by the select board. I mean, we can make changes right now before we advance the draft. The select board can make changes before they warn their hearing, so they can do their own editing if they so choose. Or they can kick it back down to us and choose not to have a hearing. They can have a hearing, say that they're not voting to adopt it, kick it back down to us, or make further edits themselves. The difference is that the select board, if the select board makes substantive changes after the hearing, they have to do another hearing. So we do not. We can keep working on this till the cows come home if we want, and then still advance it to the select board.
So we could advance it, select board could review it with the correct terminology.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's a couple of issues. The garden center issue that was brought up is, you know, I'm looking at that issue, Dan, and saying that that's a really good point. I don't know where it came from. You have a story that you think it might have come from some influence by somebody who was wanted to do something and asked it to happen. Love to hear the story someday. And at that point in time, again, when we kind of define these areas and what's going on with it, the town plan is a driver of a lot of that. So to me, an appropriate place for all of those discussions when we get to each one of these districts is, what do we envision in this district, right? That's the town plan. The zoning is saying, okay, you guys envisioned that you could do this. So here's how we're going to regulate it to actually make practical rules for it to happen. And right now, I haven't read the town plan relative to the garden center reference that you're making and whether there's anything like that in the current town plan. I don't know that there is. May not be, but I think we are going to look at all those conditional use things again when we're in there saying, what do we want happening in each one of these districts that we have in the town plan side that we then recreate back into the zoning districts. And you brought up some other things. Last meeting, you felt that there should be some more clarification having to do with solar panels because it's becoming a very hot thing. A lot of people wanting to do it. And you rightfully said that right now it's confusing and the process could be involving more red tape than it should, depending on what they want to do. So I think all of those things should get clarified. The question is, for our purposes of trying to conform and to where we need to be and move forward, where do we go from here? I think I certainly like the idea of just adding that language. So let's just kind of do like a little poll of everybody.
Yeah, and sorry, Harry, that was a good explanation. Just back on that question, the part that for my initial question, if we add, the very specific verbiage she asked, I think like that doesn't really change anything other than stating.
It does not have any regulatory impact.
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. I think that was, and for that reason, I don't mind adding it, I guess. So that's my strong pull.
Okay, James.
Agree. Remove potential confusion.
Harry.
Yeah, I have no issue with adding it there. I would, if possible, I would love to take it a step further and actually do something to forward the accessibility angle, because that's not something we really looked at in this round of revisions. And in addition to that, I would love to, well, first of all, sorry, I don't want to go down a whole rabbit hole here, but what I'm recognizing from this exemption being buried in Article 6 is that this list of exemptions on page 77 under permit requirements, I think that list of exemptions should be at the beginning of Article 2, so that which is really just a usability thing. If someone comes into the bylaw looking for, do I need a permit for X, Y, or Z? They don't have to go to page 78, 77 to find it. They go to Article 2, which is where you go to find out what uses are regulated and what types of things are regulated. And right at the top of that, you see these are exempt in all districts. So if I'm trying to do a handicap ramp, which encroaches on the setback, I know right away that that's exempt. So that's just an organizational thing, just a usability thing. And I would propose moving that to the beginning of Article 2. And then, I don't know, Hallie, what is your take on having a waivers clause?
Well, first of all, let me follow up on moving it because this section, the exemptions, it's under permits requirements. So they will need to look into the permit requirements, and then it's already listed at the first of the page, So it's not actually hidden. It's just organized under the permit requirement. Okay. For the exempt, which one was it? We can include that sentence in the exemption language that we need to. We can include it in a way or another in that section. Under the exemptions, we don't need to create a new section and refer to the statute. In a very small sentence, we don't need to add all the language.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I think this might be a better place for that language to live than in 4.0 or 4.1, like the enabling language for the general standards. Like I would add to this the language that was suggested to say accessibility modifications as required by the ADA citation are exempt, and keep that language about ramps for access and whatever, but make it more broad so it applies to anything related to ADA modifications is exempt from a zoning permit.
And you're saying to put that at 4.1 or put that in 2 or where?
Well, I think it actually makes a lot of sense to put it in 6.0 under the exemptions,
Okay.
because that makes it crystal clear that we're not regulating accessibility modifications.
Yeah.
If we just make reference to the statute up in 4.0, it doesn't actually change anything.
So you're saying go to 6.
I want to include it. I just want it to be in the right place.
The right place, right. And to me, exemptions make sense too. I mean, that's exactly what the ADA is referencing, that there's an exemption for these no matter what. So does make sense.
Yeah, we don't want someone to have to pull a permit for something that they need.
No.
I mean, building permits may still apply depending on the type of building and all that. But
Well, new buildings are going to apply because there's very, very specific standards in new buildings that do not apply to older structures.
right.
So it's a completely different animal. So let's suggest specifically what the change should be, and let's talk about it and make it so. So how would we actually do the wording so that, because Hallie's there now, you can put it right in.
I'm actually using the box, not the document
that's
itself, but I can add it later. I can write it down and add it later.
Yeah, it's a PDF version, but
Right.
I would propose, doesn't have to be number 6 or whatever, but under the exemptions, say accessibility modifications as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act, U.S. Code Section 12101. I don't even know how to say that. What was it? That's thank you.
It's a federal thing.
Well, I guess we can just say that because it's the exemption section.
It's
Accessibility modifications as required by the ADA citation, and then list that as an exemption.
I do hope you're not limiting the ADA to just accessibility, like in subsection 6. Are you foreclosing all the other aspects of the ADA Act?
What such as?
I think
I don't know the details, but I'm a little concerned that you seem to be limiting the exemptions to be only those such as entry and ramps.
I think we're talking about removing that language, right? And replacing it with the ADA.
I think it would make sense. It's broader to say accessibility, any accessibility modifications
Right.
for the ADA. So I would, yeah, say
The
replace that.
details should, I agree, the details don't need to be there. What
Are you talking about,
why?
are you talking about interior work?
Well, the ADA is not only about accessibility, there are other aspects of it that go beyond accessibility.
Right, but how do they affect our zoning side of it? That's because that's what the document is what are we putting in that it affects a regulation of a zoning side, that if we just note that anything in the ADA is exempt and just, that's it, and not try to define anything.
Would it make sense to just say modifications required for ADA,
Yes.
not accessibility? Yeah,
Yes,
makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like the way that works.
thank you.
So Hallie, I guess we would be replacing B6 there on page 77 with modifications required for the Americans with Disabilities Act citation.
We want to,
Bylaws, but zoning bylaws are typically totally agnostic to interior work, except in
Right.
specific circumstances. So the interior part of ADA, I mean, it's really the reason, like I said, that most places do the waivers thing is because it affects the footprint and potentially the dimensional standards, encroaches on setbacks, that type of thing. But we can make it as broad as possible just to make it crystal clear.
I think also the ADA, it's not only on an individual level, it goes beyond that to schools and, public facilities and
Yep.
even the sidewalks. And so it's not something that an individual is coming to, for example, do a huge project that requires the ADA approval.
Well, it extends to websites and signage and all sorts of things, but those are not in the purview of zoning. But we'll make it as broad as possible. So that it's, yeah, we'll make sure we're covering everything.
so we need to give specific language for Hallie to make that change.
I thought I just did. Did you?
Did you get that?
Did you
I'm
get
not
that,
sure
Hallie?
she did.
I think you said modifications required for ADA.
And then the citation, which I'm not-
Yeah, we cite the act.
Yeah, do you want me to email that to you?
42. Yeah, well, let's have Cliff email it to you. We have it written down.
I can.
42 USC section 12101 et sec.
Yeah, it's okay. We have the recording and the transcript.
Oh, that's true. You can get it from there.
Exempt from permits or approved in all districts. Exempt from permit in all districts.
Sounds right. Exempt from, because under exemptions,
Yeah, I mean, the section is titled exemption, so you don't have to restate that it's
Yeah.
exempt, but
Yeah.
yeah, either way. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
All right. Do you want to move on to the
So-
other comments?
yeah, let's see if there's anybody, I mean,
Well, there were a couple more
add there,
minor things.
I think we can just vote to accept all the revisions at once then at this point, right?
Yeah.
What was the other? The garden center, we can't really address now.
This was the accidental comment that was included in
Oh, yeah,
Article 7B7.
Get rid of that.
7B7, that's got to be struck.
So
That wasn't something we did, right? Was that there from our previous?
it may have,
That came from the fella sitting next to me under that one
Oh, but it just wasn't.
document that ended up being leached into other areas. Your comment
I
ended
don't
up,
think I would say that. Shall is a good word in zoning.
I don't know.
I don't know if I would say that.
I don't know where it comes, but it leached into the document from summarized.
So yeah, Hallie, this is section 7.0B7. And we're striking the second sentence,
Just page number
88.
88.
Oops.
Yes, this one. Okay.
You found it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's an easy one.
Okay.
Good catch by Dan. Do we want to talk about the garden set? Do you feel that we've already discussed that?
I mean, the question is do we want to go through all of those sections and just simply remove the term garden center and renumber it and do all of that? Or do we feel that we can address that at the next round? How do we feel about that? I mean, because I don't think some of the districts that it's located in doesn't make sense anyway. Why would you have a business like that and certain, like, I don't know, one of them was resource, a rural or wherever it was. It shows up in a bunch of places that I'm not sure a garden center does make sense. How do you guys feel about it?
It's conditional, so it'll have to go through review regardless in the areas where it is allowed as conditional.
Right.
And then there's the system of a similar use determination. So if there was something else similar enough to a garden center in terms of impact and type of business, then RZA could have it go through that process similar to a garden center. I don't know.
I mean, I guess the question is that, like I originally said with it, do we actually look at this when we're going through the town plan districts and say what kind of things we want where? Do we worry about it then and then make the change later, or we just say this is just?
I mean, the
It's a
town
potential
plan will not
conditional
go
use.
into this level of detail.
No, and I don't mean that,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's in the resource district, they really want to have retail in it.
Sure. Yeah. As
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
okay.
And that will
I
be,
may,
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
if I may say, these are mainly commercial projects, and you never know what kind of idea he might come up with and come and ask for a permit. So I don't think we will be able at any point of time to cover all the uses with the exact name and exact way how they operate their business.
Sure.
So this is why sometimes broader terminologies are the safest way, and lots of our applications, requires DRB, and they look into that into detail. And I've experienced a lot of applications where I did not have the specific use, but we go with the neatest possible use. So,
I mean, look at our parking section, and we have like 3 pages of every use under the sun that you could potentially have, and how many parking spaces are required for it. I certainly don't think we should do that
No.
in every district.
and somebody's going to want to do something that's not on there anyway. So,
I think that this section as well, it's implying that it surrounds somebody's residential property, this business.
yeah, because it's in resource and it's in, as you pointed out, it's in your rural
Resource rural, low density res.
and low density res. It's sort of like, it doesn't really belong there, I don't think, but I don't know.
I think the idea behind that is you need space, you need greenhouses and that type of thing.
Well, that's true. You
I
need larger lot sizes for sure.
don't think we need to reverse engineer whoever came up with this.
We don't.
Thinking, but
I guess the question now, okay, I'll just put it straightforward. Does the commission want to continue to evaluate to make a change in the terminology of conditional use of garden center? Or do we want to make that part of the next revision of the zoning after we've gone through the town plan and discuss things like what will we allow businesses to do in resource and rural and low density, whether we even want any kind of a retail in those areas? So
the latter, I'm in favor of the latter.
that's the question. So
What do you guys think?
I mean, I think the point Dan made is valid, but I still, in terms of the latter, as Harry said, that probably makes more sense. But I think we can all agree that the point was a valid one that was brought up.
Right, and we should keep notes on that, and so when we go through the town plan process and all that, I'm sure Dan will be joining us. So I'm sure it's a topic he won't let us forget, so that we can bring it back up later.
Retail in the more rural parts of town.
But I think the discussion needs to be not garden center, but retail.
Broad, yeah.
Because you can't, like, that does jump out. It's just strange why this one retail and not others.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna punt.
We'll revisit that.
We'll revisit that and revisit it the way it really should be done to evaluate what we want in those different districts. Because I don't think there's anything in the next 6 months that'll be affecting us anyway.
You can see why these other very specific types of businesses under conditional use in the rural areas are there.
Sure.
You know, like a kennel, a veterinary hospital, those are allowed, potential nuisance. So you want them out in more rural area. The animals might need more space. Outdoor recreation goes without saying. Extraction of earth resources. You certainly don't want that going on in a gravel pit in your downtown. So, and then there are more home-based businesses, home business, daycare facilities, stuff like that, that don't generate a ton of traffic or other outside impact and things like that. So understandable why they're there. But then a garden center, you know, certain times a year that maybe does generate a decent amount of traffic and is maybe not akin to these other businesses in the more rural parts of town. So yeah, a broader discussion.
I think it, yeah, it's, like I said, it's not just garden center. There's other considerations of what it could be too. Small engine to, I mean, you can start expanding out of all kinds of things that you could be looking at. So,
lumberyard, you know, I mean, list goes on.
And the list goes on. So I'm just of the feeling that we right now, I think it's a great point, and I think obviously it's expanded our discussion to look in a lot of other directions. And so I don't think it's going to get forgotten. I promise you that, Dan. It won't be forgotten, but I don't know that it's appropriate to try to deal with it tonight. Okay, so at this point, do we have a motion to advance the draft of the bylaw amendments with the addition of the changes made tonight to the select board?
The only changes are the ADA language and striking, right?
That one sentence.
Those two
Right,
things.
that's it.
That's correct.
Yeah, I will make a motion to advance the amended draft.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We're going to do a roll call. Any further discussion to go by the exact
Cover our
rules?
bases.
Hearing none, we have a roll call vote.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Congratulations, we got it done. Now we may be back.
Yep.
Let's see what
They can
happens.
always send it
Well, we
back.
got it done, at least to give it to the select board. I can tell Mary it's her problem. Jason sent me an email. This is under other business.
Maybe we can add to that. Maybe we should, you and I or something should plan on appearing at a select board meeting sometime in
Oh,
the
yeah.
future to, you know, just kind of brief them on everything that we've
Yeah.
done, like maybe help them digest the report and,
I'm gonna get an earful anyway, because
Yeah.
Mary and Tony, they're here tonight, so,
It's great idea.
Yeah.
so I know that we're
Save a lot
gonna,
of time.
Jason's,
prepare them for their hearing, all that kind of thing.
right. So Jason, well, actually, I don't need all of this stuff. What Jason, the gist of what Jason said is our next meeting, we're gonna get together and we'll start the discussion of how we're going to actually do the process of the town plan. And he encouraged that we look at bringing in other directly affected, interested parties. And, you know, WIC is obviously one that would be directly affected by the town plan. The
The DRB was on,
review
yeah.
board, DRB, would clearly be directly affected and should have input into town plan. Those two are fairly obvious. The others would possibly be historic Windsor. I think makes perfect sense, especially talking about when we're talking about the downtown areas. But I think what he's asking for is we don't need it tonight. What he wants to know is at our next meeting, who are the other interested parties that we should be bringing in? And the next meeting is going to be more organizational. How are we going to approach this? Are we're going to slice and dice this into chunks? Are we going to separate from our standpoint as commissioners? Are we going to separate different responsibilities for different things to work on? You would probably be interested in the rails to river area and that area and saying this would be a passion you have. You could delve deeply into that. But I'm thinking that might be one way for us to attack this because we basically can only count on the four of us to do that part of it from the commission side. Obviously, Mark has a lot of experience with this, and they're going to help give us some suggestions and guidance. We've done a bunch of these plans. So, and they are, as we know, our consultants on it, and they're going to do a lot of legwork and stuff, but we have to give them the right guidance because garbage in is garbage out. They need to understand what it is that we want.
So we need to come up with a vision of where we want this town.
That's what susses out of the town plan. Usually the vision gets written at the end.
Right. Well,
Because once you get all the pieces and you find out what's important to each segment of it, it starts to develop a whole vision.
I would say, I'm coming from the outside of this.
Sure.
Good. I've read a couple of plans, but there must be 20 plans that have been prepared for Windsor over the last 50 years, 70 years or something.
Yeah.
Do we still have them?
Sure. We have, well, I don't know how far back we go, but there are some in box that show some archives of things, and I think we can.
They may not all be digitized for sure, but
they may not be.
they
Right.
may be in the vaults or with Mark.
We may
Because I
have to
think
look there.
some initiatives in these, there's been some, I'm sure, let me rephrase that. I'm sure there's been some great initiatives that have been teased out, tested, that hasn't been acted on, or it didn't pass muster for whatever
I'd
reason.
say most of them haven't been acted on, probably.
But I think it'd be a great exercise, and if they're digitally, we could use AI to go through the town plans to see just what, some bullet points, not write a summary of the whole plan, but say 6-10 bullet points of what the initiatives were coming out with. Because I think recently, the last town plan or one before that, there was a recommendation for a bicycle trail that was coming all the way through and down to Summit Pierce. And now I'm coming from sort of Houston, Texas, where they took a bio
it's still
was
there.
full of that actual trash into something that was quite beautiful, and families and people morning exercise, take the dog, and it became a very beautiful spot. And once it got cleaned up, it got more beautiful and it came better. So there's an example of the bicycle. That sounds a great initiative. Why didn't it go anywhere? Why did nothing happen? Was it purely a financial issue, or was it's too much leeways, or we couldn't get access to make it useful?
There was some that was Bob Hayes' initiative. Do you know about it too, or?
It's mainly access related.
Yeah, it was access because you essentially had to go through people's backyards basically,
On the rail,
and following the rail line.
Right.
And no one's doing eminent domain for a bike trail, so you have to get consent from everybody.
Yeah. That was the thing.
And then the secondary side was definitely money. I mean, along the railroad tracks, there was especially on the Main Street side, there was an area that looked like it could be used that Bob had looked into. The problem was there's so many debris and everything in it. And he later discovered, why is there such a big ditch here? Well, actually the railroad requires that for watershed. So there's all these things that start to crop up. He was hoping to have a trail that started out down by the Jarvis Street, Acme Street area and followed the river as far as you could, but you run into a big brick wall pretty fast. big fence, I should said, for the Cone property and going through there. So now you have to deal with that. And then you had some farmland and some other things. So there were just too many hindrances. It wasn't an easy way to go. And we didn't have enough low volume streets that you could jump off onto or sidewalks or anything else. I know that was something he spent a lot of time on. And I think there could be some more information on it, but that's what happened with that. It wasn't that the vision wasn't acted on, because it was. We just found out it wasn't practical and be very expensive in the end.
That's just an example though. You know,
Sure.
you know, over the past, I think
No, I think that's a great project for you. Gag, you're it.
nothing more to say on the subject. At some point.
But I think you can probably talk to Tiffany or someone else in the office, and even Riley, and they might be able to. I mean, Hallie, do you know where the older town plans would be?
Well, I think probably in our server we have some old copies, but not all of them. I don't know if we have the older ones. I will need to check with Riley. Probably it's hard copies. It's not scanned.
I would bet they're in the vault.
It could be. You just need to pull them out and copy them.
For the ones that only existed ever existed on paper, they probably pretend
Let's
to copy.
see, zoning regulation document, town plan PDFs. This is.
But that's a good point, James.
Like for what purpose? We know the history of the town, and like we need to come up with a new vision that works for new generations, for the current residents, for the lifestyle that we all have. It's different. The statutes are different, the regulations, the restrictions, what we're dealing with a huge issue of housing shortage, development within the floodplains, or
I don't think it's a bad thing to look at like historical efforts and figure out why they failed and take what the core idea of that is. Like, what I'm thinking based on what you said, James, is, well, if the issue was right of way and getting easements to make this happen, but people still like the idea of a bike path, maybe we set a goal in the town plan to explore the idea of a bike path somewhere else, some other right of way that's easier to get the rights to. So I don't know. Like, I see what you're saying, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to take up most of our energy to talk about that time. I don't personally want to do the archival digging that will be required for that, but if you have an interest in it, I think that's great. And yeah, I mean, there are many visions in the past that didn't come to fruition. You mentioned the convention center. That was
I just said that.
Yeah.
There's a massive idea, and maybe at the time that there was a high employment in the town that was driving that idea.
Or it could have been a time when Goodyear was closing and they're saying, we need something big to take its place.
Right.
And that could have been a big idea.
What do you do with a massive
What can we do
commercial
with this
space?
We got a bunch of area here. Do we take Goodyear, flatten it, and build a convention center there? I could see that. I know they did do a convention center area space up at the mountain when the old ski resort was there and all that. And they had, I don't know if the Holiday Inn is doing a lot of those spaces, but they did have a bunch of meeting areas. People had weddings up there. They had, and they did do some business conventions and that kind of stuff until the mountain unfortunately went bankrupt, and then kind of lost a lot of that business. The appeal was come and have your convention and walk out the door and go skiing. And that went away. So
I'd say over the years, there's a lot of plans where there's a lot of passionate people who have spent a lot of time to try and document a vision for the next period. And just going back, some of it, totally relevant. But there may be some pearls there that worth revisiting.
And I hope you find them.
If we can find out,
I'm going to, my task that I'm going to take on, that we're going to discuss more in the next meeting is I'm going to have some specific things to talk about is the website. I showed you guys the basic, just the shell of it. There's some decisions that are going to need to be made. It's a WordPress site. It uses plugins that allows us to put all kinds of neat features into it. And the plugins cost money. Nothing that expensive. We're going to do this compared to the town website. It's like less than 1 month's payment on the town website. We'll have all the features and everything we want. Leave it at that. So that's part of what I intend to do is look at that side, take that project on first, because we're going to hopefully use that as a driver to do surveys, get feedback, give information, have our paperwork, have everything that we're covering in our meetings. And all of that is all going to be in this one resource anybody in town can go to and follow us directly without having to try to figure out a municipal site where you find things, which most of the time you still can't find them.
There's a lot of room for improvement over our current town websites.
And there's a story behind that that I can't do on official. Mike?
Will there be comments at the end?
Yes.
Yep.
So that's basically what we need to anticipate. So what we're going to look to is we need to change our mindset, since we've been focused on the minutiae and the details of everything we're doing in the plan, to now from the from the micro out to the macro, to say, what are we going to do to get this plan organized and moving forward?
Mhm.
We are a couple of months behind schedule where I'd hoped we'd be. So, and that's all I really have to say about that. And I know Mike has something he would like to say, because we'll go to public comments now.
Oh, sorry.
Comment before we move on.
Sure.
With respect to Mark as a consultant for drafting the town plan, where do we sit where does the planning commission sit in the sense of, are we driving?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We tell them what to do and they do it.
And
They're the ones
and
spending
they
the
will
time
they'll
drafting,
also
but we tell them what to.
and they'll also tell us whether it's a good idea or not.
To
To hundreds, to I don't know how many dozens of town plans that they've done. Their
Right.
experience is very extensive.
Vermont is also very, very prescriptive. State law is very prescriptive about what you have to talk about in your town plan.
Right.
So they're gonna check what we include against their rubric and make sure we're hitting all those required points, and they'll get approved by them and then approved by the state.
It's like we'll have an energy section in it that
Right.
I know somebody who might have some burden with.
Yeah.
But so, and Harry does have expertise in some of these areas, so we at least have him to fall back on too. But they're going to help us with implementing everything according to the law, and also they can help us as far as we've already given them an overview. We don't want a 1,000-page document deal where nobody's going to read it. We want it to be more vibrant.
Mhm.
So that's all the kind of things we're going to discuss with them at the next meeting, so that they have an idea of anticipating what's coming.
So next meeting is we set the tone and then approach how we're gonna approach.
Right. Now, I don't know if he's going to have, he said he might have the whole team that are going to be working on it at that meeting, which is basically the whole commission's working for us. So, or whether it'll be the following one I'd be able to do. They're in the midst of trying to finish the regional plan too. So I'm not exactly sure how many people can come. So, all right. We good? All right, so we'll move on to public comments. Mike was anxious.
Thank you again. Mike, when Windsor, I wanted to share some memories and that may help with some of the things you're talking about. I remember being present at a meeting in the Welcome Center where Bob Haight seemed to initiate the idea of the connector between that area down by Goodyear and all. And it seemed like the the terminus of that was, Lake Runnymede. And that was when Lake Runnymede was kind of emerging as as the greatest bird diversity in Windsor County. And simultaneously, there was a Paradise Park Commission meeting occurring at that time, and I used to videotape them. But I remember he met with, there were state officials there, and they talked about getting this connector. And it was, I thought part of it was really good, because one of the issues was that people who wanted to access Paradise Park, Lake Runnymede side of it, we're having difficulty and parking. Where do you park? And they got $50 tickets for parking right next to Eddie's Place Road. So I remember that. I just saying it began, I believe, in Bob's plans at that meeting. I think there were state officials there, and he was trying to talk about funding and all. The other thing I wanted to add, and I think I heard you say, who else should you bring in? I did several natural resource inventories in Paradise Park back in the late 80s. And one of them that I did was mammals, small, medium, large mammals through tracking and sign and scat. And one of the things that I discovered in my amateur inventory was that the stream that parallels Hubbard Brook, that parallels Juniper Hill Road, was a wildlife corridor. And because I was finding signs of fisher and weasel and I mean all the significant wildlife. And so I knew, or I believed that was that should be protected. And we used to bring our students down to Paradise Park, and I combined that with bringing the renowned wildlife tracker Susan Morse down, and we met it was wonderful. We met for a field trip in Paradise Park along that corridor, and I remember Crofter Cummings came and joined us, and she confirmed that yes, that was a wildlife corridor, should be protected. Don't do anything there. So I reported that to Paradise Park and select board. And then I remember when a previous town plan was being produced, I naively assumed that was there was an awareness about that wildlife corridor. And then the state came out with an act that said we want to have connectivity and wildlife corridors were important. And I remember I talked to Fish and Wildlife about it. Everybody confirmed it. And then that some entity, I think at the time I lived in Massachusetts, came into that corridor, logged it, took all the big trees out, and there was not, no discussion of it. And so I had thought that the issue of wildlife corridors that had been confirmed in that section, the state supported it, was done. And it was in the town plan, and then it wasn't. So that's kind of a bad memory for me. And so I don't know how that happened, but somebody didn't put in the plan or didn't enforce it that area should be respected as a wildlife. The other part of that is when you said who should you bring in for, maybe Fish and Wildlife should have a role. If you come up with questions, they have people who do the mapping, but then also the on the ground thing. And that's just a kind of a scar on my memory, that this pristine wildlife corridor in our special town forest that I had found was the corridor, and Sue Morse confirmed it, didn't amount to a tinker's hoorah, and it was just logged.
That's a good reminder to bring in the Paradise Park Commission and the Conservation Commission and really all of the, anyone who touches.
Well, I
the-
think basically every organization that we have in town should be invited.
Sure,
you know,
of course, yeah.
Simple put. And I think that's kind of the given. The question is there other groups that are not part of the town?
No, yeah, Fish and
consulting
Wildlife,
and all that?
are they in charge of the grasslands wildlife management area?
Yeah, they are. And see, that's the other thing, that on a larger scale, that there's the whole grasslands communities, and then the streams that originate, some of the streams that originate on the grasslands come into Paradise Park.
Mhm.
And so it really is geologically and biologically connected. And the animals that find some of their habitat in the grasslands also go down into the park. In the winter, for example, the Lake Runnymede is unfrozen on the western side through the cold winters. And so it's open water for things like certain birds and like kingfishers and all those mammals, like mink and eagle and fishers. But that doesn't, I can't see where that's either understood or appreciated or protected. And I saw that it wasn't protected in that last thing, or maybe it couldn't be protected. Maybe, you know, the private property and logging thing is something that's beyond that. But I wanted you to know that the status of that land was very special, and not just me, but Sue Morris. And then it just, boom, it wasn't respected, even though there was a new state law that wanted to support wildlife corridors. Somehow that was all knocked down and.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, I don't know, like legally speaking, that the town plan would have any real teeth in protecting something like that, but if we had language in there, like mandatory language about that would affect how the Paradise Park Commission and whoever else the other authorities are that control the parks and the other natural resources, perform logging and all that sort of stuff in the town plan. I mean, they should be taking their directives from the town plan the same way we take our directives from the town plan.
So my question,
It could be the right venue for it.
Mike, how long ago was that?
Which one?
The logging?
I don't know.
Because I know right now they're on the regional maps and all the zoning maps and the GIS and all that. They show wildlife trails, and clearly that is part of the law you talked about. That you're not supposed to be able to do anything in those areas. So I think, I understand what happened, but the question is, has it been remediated as far as legality goes?
All the more reason to talk to Fish and Wildlife, I guess.
Right. So I think it should be brought, and I think the Paradise Park Commission would be a great one for us to assign that part of the town plan to and say, suss this out for us. We're not going to do all the pieces and write every word. That's not how it's going to work. We're going to get all the interested parties together and bring to us parts of the town plan that party has more expertise on. That's my vision of how I see the process happening.
So maybe to help with the timing of it, I wasn't aware that logging was going to happen. I just assumed that the corridor was protected. And, but I believe what I remember was Marv was on the planning commission at that time. So if you wanted to find out what was his tenure, it was somewhere in there. And I think that was another thing that made me think, oh, it'll be okay. Because Marv has a pretty good understanding of Paradise Park, and you know, he was aware of the tracking and all that I did. So I just thought, oh, it's all good. And then it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm surprised because logging does require a permit usually.
Well, yeah, and you know,
Something had to happen there, and those permits, my understanding is they come from the state.
Yeah, well,
So
it's done, but I remember when it was happening, oh my God.
well, that's obviously
This
something.
pristine corridor that the state's premier wildlife tracker said, please preserve.
Well, let's do this. I mean, if you, when we start to get to that section of that and have the Paradise Park side, maybe talk with some of the people there. I mean, I know you would talk to everybody in the commission, right?
No, I'm a persona non grata.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Pretty
Sorry to hear that.
seriously.
It's Rebecca somebody and
Rebecca's-
Jim somebody.
Rebecca Haynes is there. I know several of those members very well.
I know some of them too. So, but I think that's an issue. That's certainly Paradise Park
Somebody should do
Commission.
it.
I'm sure if they have a concern about that, they're going to talk about it. But if not, we'll bring it up.
Yeah, I think they have good intentions. They just might not have the data. I mean, I had the data. I brought Sue Morris. So it's just, their intentions are good, but they may not have the same information that others have. I think bringing in Fish and Wildlife would, what's he, Jens, okay, he does a lot with the mapping, and I think that would be.
And Mark works with them very closely.
Okay,
So
yeah,
remember, our consultants are already going to be doing and sensitive to those things too.
yeah.
Yeah, we can
So
have them.
they're there to help advise us on that because they know the laws and regulations, the corridors. That's what Mark does. And so, and they are the overlay for us. So we will
Right.
certainly rely on anything that they bring up, and I'll make a note to bring that up to them.
Well, thank you for letting me share that anecdote.
Thank you.
But it did, I remember it surprised me and it stung when I thought this was protected.
Sure.
And then it was open.
I'm surprised too. I'm just thinking it may be covered. Okay, do we have any other public comments? Hearing none, believe it or not, 7:46, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.